Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to consider a story not of fiction, but of human hearts laid bare under the light of consequence. It is a tale of jealousy, ambition, and the inexorable justice that awaits every action. In our lives, we often glance at others' successes, measuring them against our own. We murmur in shadows, fostering resentment, believing that the world owes us recognition or favor. But the universe, as impartial as a clear sky, observes all. The group in question, driven by envy, plotted and whispered, thinking themselves clever, untouchable. They did not consider the nature of justice, not the courts of men alone, but the moral order that governs human affairs. In their desire to rise by others' fall, they blinded themselves to the inevitable truth that jealousy, when nurtured, becomes a poison that devours the soul. As time unfolded, subtle signs appeared. What they intended for harm rebounded upon them. Plans, intricate and devious, unraveled with a precision that seemed almost cruel. Their reputations, once carefully constructed, crumbled. Relationships frayed, allies turned wary, and in their pursuit to dim others' light, they found only darkness encroaching upon themselves. It is here we witness a profound lesson. Justice often arrives not in the loud proclamations of courts, nor in dramatic punishment, but in the quiet, almost unnoticed turning of consequences upon the doer. The jealous group learned too late that malice cannot withstand the natural law of truth and fairness. Every deceit, every slight, every whisper of envy bore its own fruit, bitter and inescapable. And yet, there is hope in this story, a lesson for all who listen. For justice is not simply retribution, it is illumination. The group's misdeeds remind us to cultivate generosity of heart, to resist the corrosive temptation of jealousy, and to pursue our ambitions with integrity. In observing their downfall, we are offered guidance. Let us act rightly, speak truthfully, and embrace a life of honesty, for in doing so, we align ourselves with the enduring rhythm of justice. Ladies and gentlemen, let this tale of the jealous group not be merely a story, but a mirror reflecting our own choices. Each envy-laden thought, each act of undermining another writes itself into the ledger of consequence. Let us therefore walk humbly, act kindly, and honor the moral compass within us, knowing that true justice, though sometimes delayed, is never denied. Jealousy is a strange companion. It enters a heart quietly, almost unnoticed, like a shadow slipping in at dusk, and yet it carries with it a weight capable of bending the entire character of a person. We often speak of envy as though it were a fleeting emotion, a momentary sting at the sight of another's fortune or success. But in truth it is far more insidious. It thrives in comparison, in the endless measurement of our own worth against that of others. When the jealous group first began to stir, it was not in some violent outburst nor in overt confrontation, but in the quiet murmurings of discontent, the small, almost imperceptible doubts about why they themselves had not risen faster, shone brighter, or been lauded more widely. In this sense, jealousy is always a mirror. It reflects not only the achievements of others, but, more painfully, the deficiencies we perceive within ourselves. Yet even this reflection is distorted, for the jealous mind refuses to see clearly, choosing instead to focus on the success of another as if it were an injustice done to itself. In human history, as in every story, this subtle corruption of spirit has led countless men and women to act against their better instincts. What begins as a thought, an idle resentment, often grows into a philosophy of rivalry, a lens through which every encounter, every observation is measured and judged against one standard, the self. The group's jealousy was like this, growing quietly, expanding within their hearts until it demanded expression. It is important to note that jealousy rarely acts alone. It is accompanied by a host of companions: pride, ambition, fear of inadequacy, and the temptation to rationalize wrongdoing. The jealous mind convinces itself that the harm done to another is either deserved or harmless, that the manipulation of circumstances or the subtle undermining of others is merely a necessary measure in the pursuit of one's own rightful place. In the case of the group, every small success achieved by a peer became a thorn, and every compliment directed elsewhere was received as a personal affront. Their hearts, once capable of admiration, now knew only discontent. This is why jealousy is so dangerous. It transforms perception. The beauty, effort, and merit in another's achievements are no longer seen for what they are, and instead become threats, obstacles to overcome by cunning or strategy rather than by personal growth. The group believed that if they could diminish the light around them, they would shine more brightly themselves. Yet in reality, the opposite occurs. Jealousy devours the soul quietly, leaving bitterness in its wake. It clouds judgment, erodes relationships, and blinds individuals to the blessings and opportunities already present in their own lives. As they schemed, the group failed to notice how their own unity began to fracture, how trust between them became strained under the weight of suspicion and covert competition. Each member, consumed by envy, saw the other as a rival as well as a partner, and in that way, jealousy not only targets the external world but also corrodes the internal, poisoning the very bonds that might have offered strength and support. Furthermore, jealousy has a curious habit of exaggerating perception. The jealous person sees slights where none exist, attributes malice where there is none, and interprets the ordinary as deliberate offense. The group's imagination became a forge in which imagined injuries were hammered into weapons of action. Here lies a key lesson. The mind, when surrendered to envy, can invent enemies and crises, and the consequences of these inventions, once acted upon, are often more real than the original harmless event that sparked the emotion. And yet it is not only the external mischief that jealousy brings, but the internal suffering it ensures. No one afflicted with deep envy finds peace or contentment. Happiness is always just beyond reach, contingent on the misfortune of another or the failure of their endeavors. The jealous group, in their pursuit of what they thought was justice for themselves, became prisoners of a relentless dissatisfaction, unable to appreciate their own talents or achievements, always measuring themselves against an ideal that exists only in comparison. It is in these quiet truths that the moral weight of jealousy is revealed. It is not merely a fault to be corrected, but a profound distortion of the human spirit. Those who allow it to flourish not only harm others, but also degrade their own capacity for joy, empathy, and wisdom. The lesson, though stark, is simple. The heart that resents another cannot flourish, and the mind that seeks to undermine cannot find clarity. In reflecting upon the jealous group, we see a cautionary tale. Their story begins in thought, in the quiet stirrings of envy, and moves inevitably toward consequence, not because the universe is harsh, but because moral reality is steadfast. Just as fire consumes what it touches, jealousy consumes the soul that harbors it. Yet this reflection also offers hope, for awareness is the first step toward change. To recognize the creeping influence of jealousy, to see its distortions, and to choose gratitude, honesty, and humility instead, is to halt the quiet decay before it becomes irreparable. In understanding the nature of jealousy, one understands the delicate balance of human character, how easily it can be corrupted, yet how resilient it can be when tended with wisdom and virtue. The group serves as a mirror, reminding us that envy is never harmless, that comparison can become a cage, and that the cultivation of a generous heart capable of both admiration and self-respect is the surest defense against the quiet but devastating power of jealousy. The mechanics of secret plots are both fascinating and tragic, for they reveal how human ambition, when untempered by conscience, can lead to its own unraveling. The jealous group, driven by envy, believed that cunning and careful planning could bend reality to their desires. They whispered in shadows, exchanged furtive glances, and crafted strategies that seemed flawless in their imagination. There is a peculiar allure to secrecy. It gives the illusion of control, a sense that one can manipulate outcomes without consequence. The group convinced themselves that they had mastered this art, that their hidden maneuvers would remain invisible while yielding the power and recognition they coveted. Yet the very nature of such plots is inherently unstable. Every scheme relies on assumptions that people will act predictably, that no unforeseen events will interfere, and that the moral order can be evaded indefinitely. These assumptions are rarely accurate, for life is neither static nor easily constrained. Human interactions are dynamic, and even the smallest variable a moment of honesty, an unexpected act of kindness, a coincidence can dismantle the most meticulous design. The group, so confident in their calculations, overlooked the subtle, often invisible threads of consequence that weave through all action. In their secrecy, they created a fragile edifice, beautiful only in its symmetry, but incapable of withstanding the slightest pressure. Furthermore, the process of plotting in secrecy exacts a toll on those who engage in it. The mind becomes divided between what is shown and what is concealed, between outward civility and inward calculation. Trust, once natural, is replaced by suspicion, even among collaborators. Each member begins to question the loyalty of the other, to anticipate betrayal where none was intended. The jealous group, in their desire to manipulate, found themselves ensnared in a web of their own making. The irony of secret plots is that while they are designed to achieve control, they often generate chaos instead. The hidden nature of their actions removes the stabilizing effect of accountability. When we act openly, in the presence of witnesses, or within a framework of moral and social norms, our decisions are tempered by the awareness of consequence. But in secrecy, this awareness fades, replaced by a false sense of freedom, and the choices made there can become reckless, cruel, or short-sighted. Each move made in the shadows accumulates, and the group found that small deceptions demanded larger ones, each lie requiring reinforcement, each manipulation demanding further manipulation. The path becomes a spiral, accelerating toward inevitable exposure. Yet even as the group believed they were invisible, the world responded. Events that they had neither anticipated nor intended began to interfere with their plan. The outcomes of human action are rarely linear, and the universe has a way of reminding us that no deed, however secret, is without ripple. They might have predicted certain reactions, but they could not predict every variable: the empathy of a bystander, the conscience of a participant, the intervention of circumstance. In this way, secret plots are like houses built on sand, intricate and impressive from the outside, yet incapable of withstanding the first tide that tests its foundation. Another truth revealed by such schemes is the way they shape the character of those involved. The more the group engaged in plotting, the more their hearts hardened. Innocuous impulses were sacrificed at the altar of ambition. Compassion was ignored, and kindness became suspect. The group, once capable of admiration for others, learned instead to calculate envy, to see opportunities for undermining rather than celebration. Their minds became a laboratory of subtle cruelty, and yet they were blind to the corrosive effect it had upon themselves. The psychology of secret plotting is instructive. It demonstrates that no one can act solely upon others without acting upon themselves. Every deception, every scheme means it is a mark upon the schemer, and this mark is often invisible until the consequences of the plot unfold. In observing the jealous group, we see the paradox of hidden ambition. In attempting to control others, they lose control over themselves. The meticulousness required to maintain a plot, the constant vigilance, the fear of exposure or create an inner turbulence, a moral and emotional instability that inevitably leads to errors, misjudgments, and ultimately failure. Finally, the story teaches that secrecy cannot escape the natural order of justice. While the group may have believed that hidden actions were beyond the reach of consequence, the universe, or the moral structure that governs human affairs, ensures that every action, no matter how covert, contributes to a chain of outcomes. The unraveling of their plot was not a matter of dramatic punishment alone, but of inevitability. The natural consequences of their intentions and actions found their way to fruition. In the end, the lesson is clear. Secret plots, born of jealousy or ambition, are like unstable bridges spanning a turbulent river. They may appear secure, but beneath lies the current of consequence, ready to sweep them away. The jealous group learned too late that ingenuity and deceit is no match for the steadfast principles of truth and integrity. Their downfall was not sudden, but the natural result of choices made in darkness, choices that could not remain hidden from the quiet reckoning that attends all human action. Observing this, we are reminded that transparency, honesty, and moral courage are not only virtues but shields. To act in secret to harm another is to sow seeds of one's own undoing, for while the plot may conceal the hand of the doer, it cannot conceal the law of consequence. The mechanics of secret plots are thus a mirror to the soul, intricate, tempting, and ultimately destructive when guided by envy or malice, yet profoundly instructive to those willing to observe, learn, and choose the path of integrity. Consequences beyond sight are among the most subtle yet powerful forces in human life, for they often unfold in ways invisible to the eye and unexpected to the mind. The jealous group, having invested their hearts and intentions in plots and schemes, believed themselves insulated from the natural flow of cause and effect. They assumed that as long as their actions were hidden, as long as no one witnessed their machinations, they were free to manipulate outcomes without penalty. Yet life rarely permits such illusions. Each action, whether large or small, sets into motion a series of effects that extend far beyond immediate perception. A word spoken in malice can echo for years, altering relationships and reputations in ways that the speaker cannot predict. A subtle act of sabotage can produce results unforeseen, touching people and circumstances beyond the reach of the schemer's imagination. The jealous group discovered slowly and painfully that no human action exists in isolation. Every effort to undermine another initiated a chain of reactions, some visible, some hidden, all inevitable. Even when the intended target was oblivious, the repercussions manifested elsewhere, bending back upon the plotters themselves. One cannot plant seeds of envy and deceit without also cultivating the soil of one's own destruction. In truth, consequences beyond sight function according to a moral geometry that does not require human observation to operate. They move according to laws of fairness, justice, and equilibrium that, while often invisible, are unyielding. The group may have believed that recognition of wrongdoing rested only in human awareness, in the judgments of peers or authorities, but moral consequence requires no audience. It is as inexorable as the sunrise, as impartial as the wind. The more the group tried to manipulate circumstances, the more entangled they became in outcomes they had neither foreseen nor intended. Friends once loyal became suspicious. Opportunities once available were lost. The very resources they thought secure began to slip from their grasp. What they had intended as advantage became disadvantage. What they had hoped to conceal became visible in unexpected ways. This is the nature of unseen consequence. It reveals itself slowly, in subtle shifts of fortune, in the quiet deterioration of reputation, in the unanticipated reversal of relationships. Those who act from jealousy are often blind to these currents. They measure only immediate outcomes, believing that success is determined solely by visible effects, by short-term gain. But life teaches differently. The world responds not merely to action, but to intention. A deed performed with malice, even if unnoticed in the moment, carries an inherent weight that influences events and shapes the environment, bending circumstance toward justice in ways both profound and unpredictable. In observing the jealous group, we see this principle in action. Their strategies, carefully designed to harm others, instead resulted in self-inflicted setbacks. Every subtle act of sabotage, every whispered rumor, every attempt to diminish another's achievement produced consequences that they did not foresee. One might have thought they were striking at others, yet in truth they were striking themselves. For the moral order ensures that energy directed outward in envy and malice eventually returns inward. Furthermore, consequences beyond sight do not respect human notions of timing. The group may have believed that if no immediate harm came of their schemes, they were safe. Yet unseen consequences often accumulate quietly, developing strength over time until the moment of reckoning arrives, unheralded and unavoidable. The ripple effects of human action, like stones cast into a lake, extend far beyond the point of origin. Some waves may take years to reach the shore. The jealous group began to feel this truth gradually, experiencing setbacks and frustrations that seemed disconnected from their actions until reflection revealed the hidden connections. This principle extends beyond the individual to the communal and societal level. Actions born of envy or malice often influence not only the target, but the environment, affecting the attitude, beliefs, and behaviors of others. The group, in seeking to manipulate outcomes, inadvertently shaped the perceptions of those around them, generating mistrust, tension, and suspicion. Their efforts to control others' fates brought about a wider disruption, one that could not be controlled or predicted. The lesson is clear: unseen consequences are the natural companions of human choice. To act in ignorance of their existence is to invite unintended suffering. To act with awareness is to cultivate wisdom and humility. The jealous group, through the unfolding of these hidden effects, came to understand that life's justice is not always immediate, not always visible, but never absent. Each act carries a moral weight, and every intention, however secret, is registered in the ledger of consequence. This awareness offers both warning and guidance. Those who seek to harm others may delay or obscure their reckoning, but they cannot escape it. Those who act with integrity and generosity may find that unseen consequences also bless their lives, often in ways that surpass expectation. In this way, the moral universe operates with subtle precision. Hidden consequences both correct injustice and shape character, ensuring that no action, however secret or seemingly inconsequential, exists outside the domain of cause and effect. The jealous group, confronted by these truths, realized too late that life's balance is exacting. Their plots, which they imagined as instruments of control, became instruments of their own misfortune. Their experiences teach us that the currents beneath the surface of human action are relentless and impartial, guiding all toward a moral equilibrium that cannot be cheated. To recognize and respect these consequences is to navigate life with awareness, to act with integrity, and to cultivate a heart free from envy, knowing that even what is unseen shapes the destiny of the doer as surely as the world around them. Justice as moral law is a concept both simple and profound, for it transcends the fluctuating judgments of men and rests upon the eternal principles that govern right and wrong. It is not always immediate, nor always visible in the outward circumstances of life, yet it operates ceaselessly, shaping events, guiding outcomes, and attending every human action. The jealous group, in their pursuit of advantage and their plotting against others, found themselves confronted with this principle, whether they understood it or not. They believed that by hiding their intentions, by manipulating appearances, they could evade scrutiny, yet moral law does not rely upon observation. It functions independently, as a steady force ensuring that every action, every choice carries consequence. In considering justice as moral law, one must recognize that it is not merely punishment for wrongdoing, nor the intervention of an external authority. It is a natural order of balance, a reflection of the truth that the universe, or the moral structure inherent in life, responds to integrity and deceit, generosity and envy, honesty and malice alike. For those who act with malice, no plot, however cleverly concealed, can remain free from the effects of moral justice. Every whisper, every hidden intention, every subtle attempt to undermine another sets into motion a chain of consequences that eventually returns to the originator. The group, in their envy and scheming, discovered this principle slowly, as small setbacks accumulated into larger ones, as opportunities slipped away, and as relationships once thought secure began to fray. Their actions, designed to control and diminish, became instruments of their own undoing, a clear illustration of how moral law operates with impartial precision. Moral justice also functions as a teacher. While the immediate effects of wrongdoing may be obscure, the long-term results provide clarity. The jealous group, confronted by failure and estrangement, came to understand the pattern of their own choices. It is here that justice transcends punishment. It illuminates the truth, revealing not only the consequences of action, but the character of the actor. It shows the mind and heart what they have become in the pursuit of selfish desire. Justice as moral law, therefore, is inseparable from awareness. To act rightly is to align oneself with the natural order of truth, to recognize that every choice carries weight, and to cultivate intentions that foster fairness, empathy, and respect. When the group fail to do so, they experience the inevitable reversal of fortune, a testament to the impartiality of moral law. Moreover, justice is not blind in the sense of indifference. It is precise. It does not strike randomly, nor does it favor the clever or the powerful merely because they can evade human scrutiny. Rather, it operates like a compass, always pointing toward the alignment of action with truth. The group's experiences demonstrate this vividly. Their efforts to harm, deceive, or manipulate resulted in outcomes that mirrored the nature of their intention. Every deceit carried with it the seeds of exposure. Every act of malice contained the potential for reversal. In this way, justice is both protective and corrective. It safeguards the innocent and ensures that integrity ultimately prevails, even when immediate appearances suggest otherwise. The notion of moral law also reminds us that justice is not solely reactive, but proactive. By cultivating virtue, by acting with honesty and fairness, individuals align themselves with the currents of justice, allowing their actions to bear positive fruit rather than destructive consequences. The jealous group, in failing to cultivate virtue, allowed themselves to be swept away by the currents of retribution inherent in their deed. Their story teaches that moral law is not arbitrary. It is a reflection of the structure of reality itself, in which intentions and actions are inseparable from outcomes. Furthermore, justice as moral law is intimately connected to the concept of accountability. While human courts and social judgment may be imperfect, the moral structure of life ensures that no one acts in a vacuum. The group's attempts to avoid detection, to manipulate perception, ultimately fail because the moral consequences of their choices are inexorable. In every subtle act of envy, every hidden plot, they were accountable not only to those around them, but to the larger framework of truth and fairness. To recognize this is to understand the weight of personal responsibility. Each decision, no matter how small, contributes to the pattern of one's life, and moral justice ensures that this pattern reflects the nature of those decisions. Finally, the story of the jealous group illustrates that moral justice is not simply punitive. It is instructive, guiding those willing to observe, reflect, and learn. It demonstrates that attempts to evade integrity are futile, that the consequences of wrongdoing eventually find their mark, and that true justice requires neither human observation nor applause. By aligning our intentions with truth, by cultivating honesty and compassion, we harmonize with the moral order and participate in the ongoing work of justice. The jealous group, through their suffering and failure, became a lesson for all that justice is not always visible, but it is always present, shaping the world, correcting imbalance, and revealing the enduring principle that actions rooted in envy and deceit cannot escape their own consequences. To live in accordance with moral law is to embrace responsibility, humility, and virtue, and in doing so, to ensure that the currents of life move toward fairness and truth rather than toward the destruction that envy and malice inevitably bring. And so, as we look upon the story of the jealous group, we see more than their downfall. We see a mirror for ourselves. Life, in its quiet and patient way, ensures that every action, every intention, every choice carries weight. The missteps of others are lessons for our own hearts, reminders that envy corrodes, that deceit entangles, and that the pursuit of another's undoing is a path that leads only to sorrow. Let us choose differently. Let us nurture integrity where temptation whispers deceit. Let us cultivate generosity where envy seeks to take root. Let us embrace patience, humility, and honesty as our guides, knowing that the moral order is impartial and unwavering, and that true justice, though sometimes slow, though sometimes invisible, always prevails. May the tale of the jealous group not linger as mere curiosity or cautionary tale, but as a call to action, a call to examine our own hearts, to act with courage and kindness, and to walk in the light of truth so that our lives may be marked not by bitterness, but by wisdom, not by failure, but by virtue, and not by the shadow of envy, but by the enduring clarity of justice.